Morning, it's a great pleasure to be here to talk about my favorite subject, how we're going to get this state back headed in the right direction. I want to stay very focused on jobs and the economy. It is the most important challenge facing Connecticut. I want to talk a little bit about how we got where we are, and then I want to talk about how we're going to get from where we are to a much better place. We got where we are because, formally, let me talk about where Connecticut was in its economic heyday. We used to be the economic engine of the Northeast. We were a place where entrepreneurs and innovators wanted to come because Connecticut was, first of all, it had great assets. It had a well-educated and highly skilled workforce. It had good educational institutions that were providing research and good human resources. And many other things. We're near cultural centers. We have a high quality of life, and so forth and so on. But in the last 25 years, much of that has been taken away from us. The assets are still there, but the ability or the attractiveness of our state to entrepreneurs and innovators has really gone away. It's gone away because, unfortunately, we've imposed policies on employers in Connecticut that really make our state, in many cases, what I call radioactive. It's just impossible in some cases to employ people here and remain competitive in the marketplace. We, for example, have many government-driven costs through mandates that are put on employers by our legislature. I'm told time and time again that by people who run businesses in Connecticut that the uncertainty in the environment in Connecticut for employers and the lack of the ability to talk about their concerns with people who are running the government makes it a place where they're really reluctant to invest. They talk about the legislature being in session for 3 months a year and then every other year 6 months, but it isn't until the last 3 days that the legislature gets together in a scrum. Nobody knows what's going to come out, a lot of yelling and screaming and smoke, and then all of a sudden we have 13 new regulations, 5 new taxes, and 3 new mandates. Business people simply cannot plan and make commitments of capital and invest in human resources in an environment like that. We have a very unresponsive state government. If somebody needs a permit to expand a plant, for example, from either DEP or DOT, it can take up to 2 years. We have an unfortunate regulatory environment where we don't really have many regulations because it's a very complicated process to pass regulations statutorily. So it's left up to the agencies of the government to come up with guidelines. But the guidelines don't act like regulations. They are open for interpretation by each individual in the government. And so employers, for example, don't know if when they apply for a permit from DEP, whether or not they're going to meet the criteria because nobody knows what the criteria are. They're never clearly set forth. So there's all these uncertainties and delays and further types of red tape that make it very difficult for employers and very expensive for employers to hire people in Connecticut. As a result, we've driven many of our best jobs out of this state. Many employers who have options of going to other states are doing so because the other states are offering a more certain environment and imposing fewer costs on them. When I hear that jobs have left Connecticut for places like Singapore or Shanghai, it leaves me with a very different idea in my mind than when I hear that we're losing jobs in New Hampshire and Pennsylvania. Jobs being lost in New Hampshire and Pennsylvania are being lost solely because of our state policies. Those states are states where the cost of the labor force, the assets that they have to offer employers are pretty much the same. The reason somebody would leave Connecticut and go to Pennsylvania is because of government-driven costs and the red tape and other things that make it hard for employers to be competitive are less so there than here. So first and foremost, as governor, I will seek to make this a more employer-friendly state, to help drive down employer-driven costs, and to make the state government more responsive to employers' needs. The next thing we need to do is we need to figure out what are the high value-added jobs that we're going to bring to Connecticut that are going to replace the lower value-added jobs that over time we probably, unfortunately, are not going to be able to keep because we have a high cost of living here and we have other things, high cost of energy. So certain industries, certain types of jobs here are probably going to be hard to retain. So when we lose those jobs, we need to make sure that we are bringing in high value-added jobs to replace them. We train our people to make sure that they're qualified for those high value-added jobs, and we keep the economy going like that. I've identified 7 categories of jobs in my plan forward for Connecticut, where we certainly offer assets to these employers who should be interested in coming here if we can make it a more employer-friendly environment, and trying to be accommodating to their needs and make them, when they come here, have a good experience. I think that is the key to getting this economy going and getting it going quickly. We also need to support our small business people. They, after all, create 70% of all new jobs in the state. We need to make sure that they get the credit they need. We've talked about providing tax credits for net new hires. I think that's a good idea. It's hard to design a program that actually works and employers can have confidence in, but there are a lot of things that we can do. So many things I talked about doing before would also reestablish the trust with our small businesses, which we've lost. Business people simply don't trust our government. They don't think that the government is trying to make their lives easier for hiring people and employing people in Connecticut. If we can reestablish that trust, I think small business people will be willing to take a risk on hiring new people sooner than they might otherwise.